And number 4, which is at the end of review and adoption. Previous or after this, yes, so.
Move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Get a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We'll move on to item number 5, approval of the March 11th, 2024 minutes.
I move to approve.
Got a motion by Adam,
I'll second.
second by Isabel, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. All right, then we'll move on to new business. So item number or letter A, outdoor patio permit, the La Playette.
Yes, thank you, Chair. For the Planning Commission's consideration this evening is the La Playette has submitted a permit for outdoor patio. Staff has worked with the applicant on this and did direct them to submit the permit. But then in order to construct what they're envisioning and wanting to construct, they would have to submit a appeal to that permit denial that staff had to issue. So just some background here is the La Playette is intending to block off portions of the rear of their facility to do a outdoor patio area. You'll probably know and recall that the La Playette did have a patio that was up for about 3 years back there. That was installed during kind of the COVID when there was heavy restrictions on dining and gathering. There was some flexibility that was given during that time. But since then, they did remove and then propose to reinstall. There are a couple changes that they are looking at. And the conflict that staff has in regards to the proposal, not that staff has, but that the city code has, is there's a section in our outdoor dining code that requires all off-street parking regulation and spaces to apply and the compliance to be maintained. So anytime a business would be expanding into a space where there is existing off-street parking regulations like this, the code states that compliance to those parking regulations shall be adhered to. So therefore, staff doesn't have the administrative ability to approve that because of the conflict. Just given the history in regards to some of the leniency that was given in the past, and where we're at today. So right now, if I've done my calculations correctly, there's about 23 total parking spaces on the entire site of the La Playette. So that's including on the north side and then also in the rear where the patio is proposed. With the proposed size of the patio area that they are proposing, that would reduce the total spaces by 8 spaces. However, they can get an additional 3 spaces also on the north side. So it really results in a total of 18 spaces that would still exist. There is a garbage enclosure that's also on the north side of the building that takes up a space or 2. So you're looking at about 16 total spaces at the facility. Our code does require restaurants to have 1 space per 4 seats plus 1 per 2 employees. However, when the La Playette was constructed, back in like the 1950s. So that predates a lot of our regulations. And as far as I know, it predates our parking regulations as well. So the first action that is requested is direction on the appeal for the permit denial. There can be a variety of different options that the Planning Commission can recommend. Some options can include direction for staff to look into ordinance revisions, suspension of the ordinance enforcement in terms of the parking regulations, just giving the history of the La Playette when it was built and then how it does predate some of our parking regulations. You know, just other directions in regards to just off-street parking requirements. Again, this is a downtown district, so with new development, like we've seen in past projects, the planning commission has the ability to, you know, grant approvals for projects that, you know, wouldn't meet the minimum parking requirements, just given the land constraints in the downtown. And then the second item that's also on the agenda for request tonight for this project is in terms of a outdoor structure. So what the La Playette is also looking at doing is, let me rotate my screen here. So they're also looking at the possibility to install a structure that has essentially a metal seamed roof with siding consisting of trim and batten boards, along with glass windows, awning along the sides, and then metal. Our ordinance does call out a variety of different allowable materials for structures in our downtown. Again, this is the downtown district. So we have those material requirements in place. However, we do allow flexibility. Granted, the planning commission has to review, make a recommendation, and then that goes to the council. So we do state within the code that we allow alternative materials, which include your decorative, synthetic materials, materials that can be comparable or, you know, mimic the appearance of other approved materials. So the two actions again is one, the recommendation on the permit denial and direction for that. And then two, the request on the materials for the structure.
Well, the permit is actually just for the outdoor dining seating area. Not a permanent, just an area that they're using currently for an outdoor patio, correct?
Yeah, so the request for the permit is for the use of that space and for outdoor patio. Again, when the patio was up, there was leniency that was given, and then the patio was taken down and then reinstalled and
Back up again now.
yeah, yep. So we really need that direction. You know, previous staff had the direction of, you know, providing leniency coming out of COVID, and that leniency just lasted for a prolonged period. So we really kind of just need the direction on, you know, if there, you know, should be, you know, changes to the code or allow them to proceed ahead with the outdoor space. The structure that they're proposing, that's to be determined when that would go up, but potentially end of summer or early 2025. So we want to bring that forward too, since it's basically two in one.
And the structure is going to go in the same footprint.
The
as where
patio
the
area.
Patio is now.
The structure, the size is not 100% determined, but as far as I know, it won't exceed the size that the patio would block off with those total spaces and
Is that
everything.
attached to the existing building or not?
It would be separate.
Separate standalone building.
Yep. Yep.
And has there been any issues with parking is at such a premium in downtown right now, especially in that little area? It's so tight. Have there been, other than myself, have a hard time finding places to park? Have other people commented on the lack of parking spaces in that area, and is that been a concern?
Yeah, so it's definitely a concern that does come up, and we do have the applicant here as well. So they can probably touch on the day-to-day uses of that space in the rear, and then also how, you know, maybe conflicts that are occurring or just parking in general in that area.
Nate, before he gets started,
Yeah.
pull up the satellite image and
Yeah.
rotate it 90 degrees so north is on the top.
And then just the question is, so the question is that the ordinance doesn't allow it, right? At this point is really what, or the code doesn't allow it at this point is what it is.
Yeah, so the reason why we can't approve it administratively is because it states in there that the parking regulations have to be maintained. So given that this is kind of a unique situation with just, you know, the history of what was allowed and where we're at. We just looking for that direction. So.
Sean Reserve.
Yeah.
Part owner, La Playa Bar. So just a couple things here. That picture actually shows we still had our old truck up there, which we had some acoustic bands playing on. We're not bringing it back up this year. We had a green fence that we had painted black by CMS Auto Body this year to make the fence a lot more appealing. We've got 4 flower boxes that hold it up when we plant flowers that will be planted tomorrow. We paid $30,000 to redo that lot about 4 years ago. And our problem, Mark, is that when you talk about people making complaints about it, it's our customers, because everybody else parks there. Even though we have signage up saying La Playa parking only, you can imagine who's parking there. But we have a lot of issues with that. We've only towed one person one time, and that was due to access to our dumpsters. So right now we're looking at, getting approval on just the temporary with the fence, and then, kind of that big vision down the road to do an actual enclosure. Would not be attached. This is getting a little bit ahead of myself, but we are looking at redoing the bathrooms, and the bathrooms would actually come out into that space, but they would be connected to the building, that structure, and they would be under that structure, but the structure wouldn't be attached. So it's a little convoluted there. But so we don't have any renderings of that yet. So.
And I will mention, I didn't mention this earlier in the presentation, but Talkaholics does have access. They access the rear of their facility through this outdoor patio space. However, all they need is about a 4-foot space, and that 4-foot space would be maintained and accessible, fully compliant ADA, everything for Talkaholics. To go back and access that rear.
Would that be like a separate cordoned off area that access for them?
So what we do there, Keith, is they've got 3 spots that are reserved for them. They have signage up on 2 of them. And then I believe the easement reads 4-foot easement along that back from the curb, basically, so deliveries can take place to their back door.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was struck with Mark and Tanya back when Tanya bought that other portion of the law when Mark split it off.
And I believe that's a private easement, not a public for,
Sure.
yeah.
Well, just looking at the spaces that they were previously marked, and then COVID hit all of us. And like Sean and Ann looked to turn that into a patio to keep functioning as a business. I'm sure they wouldn't have made that decision if they thought those parking spaces were so valuable they couldn't give them up, they couldn't relinquish them. So if you've been operating just fine without those spaces, and you see it'd be more beneficial and valuable to your business to extend the patio area with it being covered and protected, I honestly don't see an issue with this.
Could you fund that?
For the fundraising campaign.
And Sean, would you say that your employees, for the most part, pretty much park on that north side of the building, so there's adequate space?
Yep,
there for
a
them?
lot of them do, Nate. When we get into our busier weekends, then we instruct them to park away to leave access for our guests. We work with John a lot he's fine with us parking in his lot back there as well, which he also has signed that is, reserved for him. But he's been a great neighbor to us and a great partner in everything we've done.
To kind of piggyback on Adam's, I guess I don't see an issue with either because of your parking spots and they're being taken, from you, essentially taking away from. So, but that being said, if the code on that, I guess, is our suggestion that they try to look at switching that then so that he could proceed with it, or?
So you can recommend, suspension of the enforcement of this particular code. And you can direct staff to look at, maybe changes or, draft language to those, to that code. So that could be a recommendation that would be more in line with kind of what Adam is maybe saying.
Did you say it's 4 per guest and 2 per employee, or?
Yeah, so the code is for restaurant spaces, 1 space per 4 seats. and then 1 per 2 employees. And then we didn't do the calcs in how many.
I guess I'd be thinking more in terms of, since this is retroactive, because this building was in place long before that code ever came out. That's one thing, but going forward, I'm not sure I want to change the code. Going forward, when we're trying to do is make sure we've got an adequate number of parking spaces for guests and for employees who are coming to these restaurants going forward. And my concern is that if we make that change for everything in the future, we could be exacerbating an already tight parking situation in downtown St. Joe.
That's a good point.
I wouldn't want to temporarily suspend like the ordinance for new businesses. But like being as the La Playette's been here since the 50s, 60s and like they predate this, I would be okay with a temporary suspension for a business, a structure that supersedes the writing of our ordinances.
There
Wow.
before the-
So essentially the recommendation to allow them to proceed and approve the request. Yep, given the history and everything.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would agree that as well, yeah. Do we need a motion on that or anything, Nate, or do we just?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I move that we temporarily suspend the enforcement of ordinances for the structure that the La Playette is entertaining.
Motion,
That's for the parking, correct? For not the structure yet, but just for the.
For,
we're only talking for the patio right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For-
the parking for
Yep.
the patio. Yep.
for 6A1 of
There you
our
go.
packet.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion and second, all in favor? Opposed? All right, and then the second item then would be the 6A2, then would be the building materials discussion. And there you pull it back up, yeah.
He's gonna give a little input on that as well.
Sure.
So right now, it is an older building. The north side of it is, I'll say it, it's an eyesore. When you're at Crew and you're looking at it, it's not a good looking side of the building. So what we plan to do there with whoever we contract with is whatever we're doing on that addition, we would then incorporate that into the north side of the building as well, to tie that all together to look similar to what else is going on College. Everything's been modernized and clean. So that's just my 2 cents on that, and we're just fine following.
So what we're looking at is actually, we're looking south. This is the.
Correct.
Crew, correct?
Correct.
So the slope is gonna come from your building off toward the garage.
That's correct, Keith. Yep. So that extension on the right side of the drawing there, that would cantilever over the existing La Playette a little bit is how that would work. The back of where the garage doors are situated in that picture, that would be at about the back corner of our building.
And where your fence is right now.
Yes, correct. Yep.
And then those obviously would be open, so in the summertime you could have those open,
Yes. Yep.
and it still leaves enough space for people to get.
For the easement, correct. Yep. Yep. Yeah, and our plan was to either not bring that all the way over to the curb or to have another door in the back similar to this where it would allow for deliveries to easily flow through that structure.
And with this structure, just clarification again, the roof would be compliant. We do allow the seamed roof. It's just the other materials that we need the recommendation for to allow them to proceed or that with those materials.
And those materials are gonna be a metal type of material or what are they going to be made of? Is it a-
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay,
All we would, we wanted to make sure that we could continue with the design process, and then we would obviously incorporate whatever is allowed into that.
okay.
Into that structure.
Yeah, I'd want to see more detail on
Yeah.
what you're actually looking at on your elevations as far as color and. I mean, hardy board is one thing, and then you're looking at, you know. You know what they are, but
Yeah.
I want to see more detail.
Yeah, and then I think what we could do to even expand on that is to draw what that whole side would look like
Yeah,
with that.
which would be I mean, I like the idea of improving along the north
Yep.
side there as well and kind of tying that
Mhm.
together. I think that
Right.
to me would be more appealing to just to bring everything
Mm-hmm.
in one, so.
Yep.
Not to belabor the point, but there would be parking in front of these as well.
Correct. Yep.
So you
Yep.
have 3 spaces that, you know, that you've got now.
Exactly. Yep, and then when the doors go up, we would have some sort of partition there or something that still wouldn't allow free flow of people coming in and out. It wouldn't be, I don't know what that would look like right now, but
Like your fence.
Exactly.
Small
Yeah,
fence,
something
piece of vegetation, flower boxes. things like that.
exactly. Yep. Yep. And our plan there is, you know, getting into more groom's dinners, weddings, that type of thing. It wouldn't be heated and cooled. But it would have a roof on it where we could, you know, get portable heaters if we needed it, that type of thing. So we're not just watching the weather forecast every time an event's coming up.
And there's no code issues with a freestanding, it's not part of the principal structure, it's a freestanding building there.
No, there is not. Yeah. No, the biggest thing with like the patio is in terms of like the liquor and being served and just having that enclosed space around the entire perimeter where liquor is being served. But as far as egress and that, as long as there is egress in and out, that would be what fire code would require. Accessible egress.
If food breaks in and out of that, there'd be access from this. I didn't see it in the drawings. I don't remember seeing it. Access back into your principal structure.
Correct, correct. Yep. The grand design there, Mark, is that we would have a, if you've been to Ultimate where he's got that bar that opens up to the patio, we have something similar to that.
I've never been. I don't go to.
Okay.
So for as far as the material side of things, are you guys anything on that or?
I really don't have, you know, a ton of input as far as recommending simply because you're even before preliminary stages, you stated. So I don't want to give you a whole bunch of input when you haven't even mired yourself into thinking of what you want to do specifically.
So I
Is
don't-
there any direction that the planning commission may have in terms of materials that, you know, would be appropriate or would like to be, you know, seen as incorporated into this structure? That might help Sean come back with some ideas that, you know, would be on the right track. And again, just to go through kind of our materials, I'm just going to read those off real quick. So the ones that we do list that are allowable are your brick, your precast concrete, as long as that concrete's treated with a decorative material or texture, wood, natural cut stone, glass, stucco, pre-finished architectural metal panels. And then the next part of our code is where we talk about any other materials. You know, so there's metals that, you know, just to, you know, get maybe some direction to Sean as he's pulling together the design components.
Has that come up recently before too, where they've tried to use more of the architectural metals, I think, rather than in lieu of some of these other materials, I thought.
Yeah, so that
came up.
architectural metal is becoming really common. The standard and then the design of that is looking a lot, you know, more aesthetically pleasing. Where we ran into that in the past was with like Bad Habit, because right now we cap that metal at like a 15% allowance. So Bad Habit, when they did their expansion, they exceeded that, so they had to come to the commission and ask for approval on that.
Yeah.
So things like that, like if there's materials that, yeah, the commission has any preferences on or that.
I again wouldn't give Sean and Ann a ton of direction simply because this side of the building isn't street facing. Like if we want to be nitpicky, it's an alley.
Alley face.
So if it was like a storefront street facing, like everybody that comes to the city of St. Joseph sees it when they drive by, you might be more peculiar on the ordinances, but the fact that you're just making this area more attractive because it matches the attractiveness of Crew, which is a significantly newer building. I'm just appreciative of that.
Just as another thought, whatever you do on this structure, are you also considering mimicking some of that same design along the whole north side of your building?
Yeah, I mean, I love the metal that we put up there. The brick might be a little cost ineffective, you know, but yeah, for sure. So that all ties in.
Ties together.
Yep.
Gives a nice
Yeah.
look to your.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
I guess I'd accomplish with that. I wouldn't want to say anything about.
Yeah.
Whether they choose it till.
682 right now.
Yeah, yep.
Materials.
Yeah, and obviously in terms of the steps, we wanted to take this step to make sure that, you know, we had a general agreement that we could move forward before we spent the money on drafting and doing that type of thing, so.
Nate Venus for 6A1. We temporarily suspended the enforcement of the ordinance for 6A2. Do we have to give a recommendation, or can we allow like the applicants to do as they wish until they return with like a more ironed out plan?
You can make the recommendation that they just come back when they have the materials kind of solidified, or at least some options. And then that way the commission can then take a review and recommendation on
A
them.
better rendering based on that, Nate.
Yeah.
That would be good. Oh, a rendering and
Yep.
probably a little, better. Just this type of material, I guess, you know, if
Yep.
we have an idea of what you're thinking for material and things, yeah.
Yep. I think we have some crayons at the bar. John uses them, put up.
Yes, I do. So then do we need a suggestion on that, or do we just table it? for future? How do we
I
want to
think
do
I'm
that?
kind of hearing the suggestion, and that's just to come back with some specs.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
All right, then we'll move on. The second item for new business, public hearing for zoning text amendment application. Tyler Bregelman, City Code 502.12 subdivision 6, section E.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So for the planning commission's consideration this evening again is a proposal by Tyler Bregelman. So over the past several months, staff has been working with him on a proposed development. Mr. Bregelman proposes to essentially build 7 total structures. Right now, there's 2 lots that are existing. So he would have to combine those lots into one and then vacate easements that run between those 2 lots. His first phase includes the construction of 2, maybe 3 buildings on that site. So his intent is for those buildings to be leased out to different users. Think of your industrial user incubator type of setup, where a small startup business moves into one of these structures. They get off the ground and running, they start their operations, and then the hope would be that they then move into a different, maybe larger building and buy another vacant lot in the community. So the conflict that we ran into is right now there's a code reference that does not allow more than 1 principal structure on a lot. So when we worked through that, we did work along with Mr. Bregelman on some different options. Those options included combining the structures into 1 contiguous building, replatting the buildings for what we call a CIC plat. That's a common interest community plat. Essentially, that would place each of those buildings on its own parcel ID within the lot. Those are common when you have like townhomes that are attached to one another. You see them also sometimes in like a strip mall setup where there's different tenants, and then they choose to put those tenants in those spaces in their own parcel, so then they can sell them individually. And then the other option, which was the one that Mr. Bregelman did choose to pursue, was to pursue a zoning text amendment to allow more than 1 building on a lot. So staff, we did discuss all of these with Mr. Bregelman in regards to the pros and cons for each. We did have legal also take a look on these different options. Staff is supportive of, going the zoning text amendment route. So right now, what is being proposed is essentially modifying that reference of allowing 1 principal building and specifying that language essentially spell out no more than one principal building in a residential single-family lot area. So what that does is that essentially stays consistent with like historical enforcement and interpretation of the code. In our single-family districts, we don't allow more than one home on a lot. There are two examples, I think, in the community where there's older lots that have two homes on them. Those were predating any of our ordinances. But what that code amendment would do would allow projects like what Mr. Bergelman is proposing to have more than one principal structure. Now, as we probably all know, industrial parks, often have more than one structure, but those structures are accessory to the principal building. This one is very unique and kind of one of a kind request in the sense of Mr. Bergelman would have multiple structures leased out to different tenants and businesses. So with that, in your packet, of course, is the written background from the applicant along with his civil plans and proposal. So you can kind of see the project in all of its phases. This does require a public hearing due to the request to change the ordinance. And then after the public hearing, we are requesting a motion on that resolution 2024-001. So with that, I'd be happy to answer questions. We do have the applicant in it.
You guys have any initial comments? Otherwise, we
I
can-
have a question. Are there any parameters to like how many structures then, or just more than one?
So a lot of those parameters that would kick in would be our normal site plan review standards. So we would have our lot coverage, we'd have our
Mhm.
impervious surface. So they would still have to follow all of our other codes. And that's going to limit what someone could do on the lot, given stormwater needs and other site specifics that would come into play.
As far as the actual code, the way it's worded, was the way the staff suggested, we're changing it to single-family districts cannot have more than one building per lot. Not that I want to wordsmith it, but should that read like one principal
Principal,
building,
maybe.
because you might want to have a
Good point.
storage shed or a plate.
That's a good point.
Of
Yeah.
course, yeah, I should definitely read that, and
'Cause that's the way to
apologies
read
that
currently.
we
That's a
did
good
not put the
point.
principal in there. So yeah, it should definitely, that was the intent of
It is in the. You keep going down, it does say.
the
principal.
resolution.
Yeah.
Totally, that's okay.
I would have been really disappointed in myself if I didn't have that. It should definitely, yeah. So the only language that we are proposing to add is the language in red here, where we just put in single family residential districts. So yeah, everything else is staying the same.
So with phase one, you're saying 3 buildings is who's there right there?
And Tyler, if you could go to the
Yeah,
mic,
come up here.
yeah,
Do you
sorry.
want to open the public
Or
hearing?
yeah, we
Maybe
can do
into
that
it?
first,
Yeah,
and then we
yeah.
can, so just give us
Okay.
a sec, Tyler, sorry,
Yeah.
because I'll got questions for you.
Yep. I'm having another discussion, otherwise, all right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing then on the zoning text amendment for Tyler Bregeman. All right, go ahead now. Get questions.
Okay, so.
You can ask them.
Oh, here's my
Unless you have
dots.
something, if you want to go ahead and
Does anybody else want to speak?
tell us
on it?
first, or yeah, or does anybody want to speak on this at all besides Tyler?
You could close it and then we could ask if you want. If no
Yeah, I
one
would
else is here.
recommend that
that.
you
Okay.
close it and then
Okay.
you can engage in discussion
All right.
with the applicant.
All right, okay, well, if nobody else has any comments, we'll close the public hearing.
One question, this is right 2 lots from where we're gonna build, is there anything happen with the size of the buildings and sprinkler system? If they're all on one lot?
So the sprinkler system determination comes down to the size of each structure. There's a threshold, I believe, that once it's above a certain square footage, and it's a little bit out of my expertise. Our building official kind of reviews that component, but
Just overall, so many buildings concentrated there, with, they're probably under the amount of square feet for sprinkler systems. So would that have an impact if there was a fire there? They probably won't have sprinkler systems, I'm guessing.
Okay, so you're asking
It's a good
about
point.
individual sprinkler systems for each building.
Right. He's saying if you combine the
Gotcha.
square footage, you would probably be over the requirement for the fire spread.
That's a great question. and I don't know the answer to that. I
As
can
long as
definitely,
the buildings aren't contiguous like a strip mall, I don't believe it'd be applicable.
Right.
Right, but I think he's saying if you have a bunch of buildings that close together, your risk of fire to spread is
Higher.
higher.
Yep. Yeah.
Question. Okay. All right, so we'll close the public hearing on the zoning text amendment. Discussion or question?
Okay, yeah. So Tyler, hi, John. So you say first phase, 3 buildings is what you're looking at, like. If this site plan, what would be like phase 2, phase 3, like talk years, like how? Months in advance, do you have people that are already interested in possibly?
So my father actually wants one. So
Okay.
he will take one right away, but I haven't advertised it or anything
Okay,
until I obviously start building. Phase 1 is just gonna be 2 buildings for now.
okay,
And then I don't know exactly how long it'll be for the next phase until I start to see people starting to lease from me.
okay.
So it's kind of to be determined.
Can I ask the reason why you don't want to combine them into?
I personally just think it looks a little bit better having them split up, because my original game plan was to have them all in one, and then after getting some drawings back, I just didn't like the way it looked.
Okay.
So I seen a couple of buildings in Cold Spring that were split off like this, and I decided to go this way.
I have a question for Nate. So then separation between the buildings, do those still have to be?
correct.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, so any fire code or building code or zoning stipulations would still all be into play.
Per building, also parking needs.
Everything, parking, landscaping,
Yeah.
lighting, yep.
And these would all have to be made, for the ownership would have to be with you permanently, unless you sold all of them together, correct?
Correct.
You can't sell one of them individually.
That's correct.
So that, yeah, the applicant would have to come back if he wanted to sell them individually, he'd have to come back and replat it as that
CIC.
CIC plat, correct?
What if we were to say, no, we didn't like the 3 and you continue with 1, would you still move forward?
I don't know if I would do it I don't know if I'd do it the same way,
Okay.
but I would still move forward with putting a building there.
Mhm.
I don't know exactly what I would do. I'd have to go back to the drawing board, obviously, but.
All I have.
Any comments? Any?
I move that we approve ordinance 2024-001.
I can second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Again,
Ordinance 2024-001.
thank you. Ordinance 2024-001. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we'll move on to new business item C, public hearing, vacation of interior easements, Hanson Companies.
Alrighty, thank you, Chair, again. So for consideration this evening are multiple requests by Hanson and Companies. So Adam Hanson, who is in attendance this evening, is proposing to construct a new 82,500 square foot manufacturing facility. It will also contain 6,000 square feet of office space. Hanson and Companies is located in St. Joseph right now, out in our older industrial park, which was annexed back in 2018 into the city. So this proposal does require multiple actions and recommendations this evening. Those actions are tied to on-street or on-site parking, easements, and then building materials. Hanson does have a purchase agreement with the current property owner. These parcels do take up a total of 4 individual lots. Those 4 individual lots will essentially be combined into one lot, and then easements vacated in between each of those lots. First item for consideration is the vacation of those interior easements. There are, as you can see there on the screen circled in red, those easements that run between each of those lots. So the request is to vacate those so the applicant can combine the lot into one and then build a structure over said vacated easement lines. This first request does require a public hearing. So staff would request that you would open up the public hearing and then take action on the resolution that is in your packet. I don't have the number in front of me here, but
It's
2024-027. Yep.
thank you.
Any discussion before we open the public hearing? If not, we'll open the public hearing for since resolution 2024-027 for vacating the interior easements. Anybody wish to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing.
I'll move for finding the facts. Yep. 2024-2027 to vacate.
All right, we have a motion and a second on resolution 2024-027 to vacate the interior easements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Okay, we'll move on to item 6D, which is variance to the parking lot materials. Next.
Alrighty, so as part of the proposal, Adam Hansen's also within the site plan itself. He will be paving the entire site with asphalt and curb and gutter minus the loading area in the rear of the facility. There will be some smaller slabs of concrete in the rear, specifically where the semi trucks are parking and loading and unloading. But the rest of the rear would be a crushed surface, like a granite or an asphalt crushed surface. So this does trigger a variance request due to the code language that stipulates that all off-street and loading spaces are a hard surface such as concrete, bituminous, or paver. So the staff has included a resolution for approval and a resolution for denial for this project in your packet. Just a side note, we've received requests like this, seems to be somewhat consistently. So there might be some weight or consideration moving forward or in the future to maybe take a look at that ordinance and see if there's any changes that would make sense to the ordinance. So with that, this one also does require a public hearing and then also a motion on the finding of fact. The one to approve is finding of fact 2024-028. And then the resolution is the same number, but with an X at the end. So.
Initial discussion.
Open the public.
Now we'll open the public hearing. Anybody wish to speak? Now we'll close the public hearing.
And just what real quick, there was one person that was gonna zoom in, but okay. Just wanted to double check.
Just a question too with the truck back here, the parking. How many spots do you got back there for the truck parking per se, would you say? In the back there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Assuming the back area, right, is where we're talking.
Can we get your name, introduction, or yeah?
Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So for the truck parking, it's really not parking in back, it's more loading and unloading,
Okay,
is what it would be for, so, that parking back there that you see, all the parking spaces are more, I think of, one of the next things coming up is for the, show lot, we could do enough parking spaces in there
oh,
for the size of the facility.
Yeah.
That
You got-
parking concept.
you guys have loading docks at all?
That's
going
the
in?
blue,
Right here?
Yeah, the
Okay.
blue area there, and that will be concrete.
that would be all concrete, all the blue would be concrete, yeah.
For those of us that are kind of colorblind,
Yeah.
just to make sure that that's the blue, the purple is where all the parking is.
Correct,
Yeah.
yep.
That's the
Can you
blue.
see my cursor?
Yeah,
Okay, yep, so
Yeah.
this is concrete, this lighter color right here, coming up here is the proposal for the variance.
Okay. So 4 loading docks just on the right then, huh?
And one on the left.
And 1 on the left. Okay,
Yeah, one of the seats there.
okay. Thanks. That's just what I had. So otherwise, I'll make a motion, the finding fact of 2024-2028, approving the variance for parking setback.
We have a motion.
I second that.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2024-028, approving the adoption of findings of fact for the variance for the minimum parking standards. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Just to clarify, I heard it was for the setback, but it's for the materials, right, as proposed in the resolution?
Yeah, 60.
Okay,
Motion,
okay,
motion of finding fact 2024-2028, approving the variance for the parking lot setback, correct?
Variance to the minimum parking lot standards.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
for the
that-
materials, for the
Sorry.
alternative
Materials,
surface.
yes,
Yep,
materials.
Materials, yeah.
My apologies.
All right. And then we'll move on to item number E, proof of parking plan for Hanson Companies.
all right, keep it at this screen. I think this one does the best of kind of outlining some of the elements for this next item. With the proposal for Hanson and Companies, they're proposing to not construct all the minimum spaces required by code. You'll recall that we've had other projects like Good and Company who came in and code says X number of spaces. And then we do have flexibility within our city code to do the proof of parking, which allows requests on an individual basis to come forward and seek flexibility to not have to construct X number of spaces, more geared towards the business needs and the unique needs for each individual business and their own parking needs. So Hanson does, within our code, we do require 3 spaces per 1,000 square feet for manufacturing or fabricating of product, plus 1 space for every 300 square feet of office. So that essentially equates to 246 parking spaces for the production area, and then 20 spaces for the office, with a total of 266. The total that could be constructed as outlined on this proposal. Now, this is also where that lighter purple shows additional parking spaces. Those total parking spaces for the site are 218. And the proposal that Hanson is seeking currently for the parking is 72 spaces. Some more background was provided in the packet in regards to Adam's own employee counts, his kind of day-to-day and the fact that there's very minimum traffic or customers that would be coming to site. With his employees, there is 61 total employees, and that is at the peak time and during day shift operations. With the move out to this new lot and the new building that is expected to grow in terms of employee counts up to another about dozen or so over the next several years. So again, limited walk-up traffic. The proposed spots that Hanson is proposing are essentially for adequate for his employee needs. So what's being requested is the proof of parking plan to allow flexibility and to allow Hanson to construct less than the required spaces for the site. And the Planning Commission does reserve the right to place conditions on the proof of parking proposal if need be. So with that, happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I've got a couple. I just didn't know if anybody else wanted to go. So 55 during the day shift is where we're at max, right? Correct? And call it 6 nights, so never 61 at a time currently, correct?
Correct, that's
Correct.
correct, yes.
If you talk about growth in the next, call it 6 years, which is what we want, right? Hiring 13 people, what's your division of day shift, night shift between, call it those 13 that you're predicting in the next 6 years?
Yeah, we're only gonna have about another 7 or 8 on day shift,
Okay,
and the rest gonna be on nights and actually a third shift, so.
okay.
Yeah,
So maybe 62 to 70, in the next up there, because I mean, 72, you're looking at, I mean, I'm assuming you want to still expand.
right.
I guess my next question too is very limited walk up. What would be your walk up or people coming here to the building specifically, not just your employees, like on average?
It's only vendors, that's really, we don't have any walk-in, we're not a residential shop or anything
No
like that.
retail,
We
no
don't have
retail
any
sales at
retail.
all.
So it's literally vendor traffic, is all we really would get in, so 2 or 3 cars, I think we have 2 spaces now and they're empty most of the time, so.
Okay. Let's say in the next 6 years, you guys just blow up and you need to hire more people and now you only have 72 spots and not enough spots. Do you have a thought on maybe what the next steps would be, expansion plan would be?
Yeah, we would go, where on the top of the building there, we would see where it's kind of all green, we see the parking spots, we would infill that first.
Okay,
I don't know the exact count, but that'd probably give us another 60, 70 spots.
yeah,
And
enough.
then we'd connect that to the other entrance. Yeah.
Okay,
That's gonna be part of your first phase, and what's that gonna be? You're not, right now, when you first start, you've got to the left, you've got paved parking going down the side. But right up front.
Yep. It's just gonna be grass.
Okay.
That's all, it's just green space. Is what
Got
it's
it.
gonna be for now. Yeah.
so if for some reason you boom, which is what we want you to do, you have a plan to be able to put it
Correct.
back if you need more parking.
Yeah, we
okay.
would do that first, and then if you had to go in the back.
Okay.
that'd be where we'd go.
Mhm. Okay, those are the questions I had. Thank you.
And then if for some reason they ever did need to expand to the back, would they need to come back again for parking back there? Or would that other one just stand?
No, so when we're also going through this entire site plan review with Adam. So part of our review is also covering those elements. So we're basically anticipating that eventually those spaces, even though they're not being constructed now, may be hard surface and not green space. So like stormwater and all that is being calculated and
Okay.
under, the current.
So they're taking that into consideration now with
Yeah.
the design of the stormwater and
Right.
everything.
Yes, correct.
You're almost kind of planning ahead too, so it doesn't impede you to grow as well.
Correct.
Got
yes.
it.
I think we have a little bit of precedence in this too, with,
Yeah.
like I said, recently with some
Yep.
other buildings back there, so.
And I'll just touch on just, staff and stuff too, in terms of, if we did, if for some reason, Adam, he grew really quick in that and there is, folks parking out there, we would work with Adam to,
Mhm.
Develop a timeline for then him to, construct those additional spaces so folks aren't parking on grass.
Yeah.
And that, so.
And, like I said, my biggest thing was just, it's the very limited walk up, just kind of trying to see like, how much would you have a day, or if it's very, very limited, if
Very
it's just production, correct?
Correct.
So,
So do we need to make a motion on that at all to?
I move to
Correct.
approve the proof of parking plan.
All right, we got a motion to approve the proof of parking plan.
I'll second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, then we'll move to item 6F, building materials for Hanson Companies.
Alrighty. All right. Gotta pull up now. City code does require for buildings out in the industrial park that we have a material breakage. So for faces of buildings that are facing public streets and right of ways, there is what we call a 25% material breakage, where we list off the materials that is allowable, that's meant to kind of aesthetically break up the building for those portions that are facing right of ways. So there's not one contiguous material or that. So within our code, we call out materials like brick, stone, cultured rock, glass, vinyl, stucco, aluminum lap siding, cut block, concrete block. And what Adam Hansen is proposing on his building is, so he'll have portions of his building facing 21st Avenue Northeast, which is to the east. And then Jasmine Court, which is the cul-de-sac that he would be located off. And then small portions to the north and then the west. Very, very small portions towards the west, towards County Road 133. So those areas technically do apply for that 25% material breakage. And what Adam Hansen is proposing is essentially a precast concrete material that has architectural steel panels with various colors that will break up the look, and you can kind of see some of that in the depiction here. There was also examples included in your packet from other buildings and other projects, and specifically the material that Adam is looking to do. So when staff reviewed this, just given that we had this come up with another building, which would be the Hiltner project, which is located right to the south of this one. We had it come up with, I think, the Granite City Gymnastics and that. But when we look at just the intent of the ordinance by staff interpretation and what Adam Hansen is proposing, we don't see any concerns in regards to this, because there is going to be a breakage with the building in terms of the color, the architectural steel panels, and the look of the building, which in staff's interpretation meets the intent of the ordinance. So, but we would need that recommendation on that interpretation from the Planning Commission as well.
Are the colors just like this then? Like the grays, the blacks, the whites, kind of what we've got on here? Or correct?
It's tones of grays, blacks and whites, correct?
Okay.
I'm gonna reiterate, you mentioned there's steel accent, there's not like steel panels, architectural panels in the building, the whole building is a smooth precast building, and we're breaking up to make the aesthetics look with the paints. Kind of like maybe what you'd see like in Maple Grove along on the north side of 694, there's a lot of those big warehouses and stuff, kind of that same kind of appearance. So it's a smooth building. There's horizontal relief breaks in the precast that will, where the colors will change, but it's mostly in the color changes is where the finishes will look.
Okay.
Nate's.
And that'll be painted, you said? Painted on the-
Right there.
Sun picture.
Kind of like, yeah, like
There
that.
we go, like that.
Yeah, like that, correct.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes. No.
I'll move that the interpretation of City Code 502.62 subdivision 10, section C, allow for an alternative exterior building material as proposed by the applicant.
A second.
All right, a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Looks like a nice building.
Yeah, that was very good.
Thank you, Adam.
All right, we don't have any other new business, we'll move on to old business.
Yeah, so just some general updates. So since we last met in March and didn't have an April meeting, the items that we had back at that March meeting, so those were the items tied to the House of Hearn, the Synergy site, the gas station. Those were forwarded on to the council. The council did approve all of those actions, including the proof of parking plan, the variance to the parking lot, and then the variance to the building. We also had a home occupation that was also approved. That was that 201 Pondview Lane. So council did approve those items. The outdoor storage that we had for off the Wobegon Trail. So that one, you might have seen, I haven't got out there yet, but they were going to do some of those plantings. They did get the permit from the state in terms of doing those plantings up along the trail itself. So they'll be up higher and hopefully can screen that better and more effectively. So those should have gone in. I just haven't got out there yet to confirm. And then Rivers Bend Park will also see construction. That was what East Park was, park off the river. That will see construction end of summer. So that's the updates that I have. Questions on things going on? We've been off to a really good spring. I was not sure what to expect given the interest rates and the economy and just all these factors. But we've seen a lot of interest in things, and evident tonight we see some of these projects moving forward. You also see some other ones that don't require any formal actions, but are being reviewed administratively and that. So should be it has been a busy spring
I
and
can
summer.
confirm that those trees they're looking to put along the Wobegon Trail for the outdoor storage area, they have put them in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Has there
Any-
been any update on, the event center?
So still on hold. So they are going to be coming up on their 1 year. I think it's in end of summer or early fall, maybe September. So they are aware of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they came back and asked for a extension.
Yeah, cause I haven't seen
Yeah.
anything going on out there.
Yeah, it's been on hold. Yeah.
Or you've been referring to the wedding events.
The wedding event.
Yeah, Jade Road.
Now we're talking about our wonderful community center.
Oh. No.
Two different centers.
Yeah.
Any interest in the Contardo building?
Yeah. Yep.
You've got some
Yep.
people.
Yeah. So so the laser dentistry, Dr. Contardo did list his property for sale. So it includes his existing business, but he also has owned 2 homes that are off the alleyway there. And this is a older part of the community. So this is the one example I think that I know of where there's 2 homes on 1 lot technically.
Yeah.
But they're more like studio types of homes that have been rented out over the years. So that Second Avenue corridor is going to continue to be busy and see activity with the old gas station, with the Quonset building that Shannon Weiger is remodeling and doing the exterior, and now the laser dentistry.
What's gonna go in that one that Shannon's redoing again? You have.
She does not publicly announce the tenants yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about inquiries on Old Casey's?
Yes, we have inquiries. Price is it's the price.
How about it's the barbecue place over by Resurrection, there's the church over there.
Yep, I haven't got any updates on that in a few months here. So
There's a lot.
It's good.
yeah, it's kind of like treading water some days, but it's a good busy because there's a variety of different projects going on. Another example is we had a smaller apartment unit that was approved. They went through site plan review, even got as far as building permit, and just did not move forward. That property was sold and was purchased by, I think Torberg owns it now. We've seen interest in that, and that's the parcel right off Hill Street, right over here. So, yeah, it's a lot of things moving and shaking for sure, which is good because, like I mentioned, I wasn't quite sure with just interest rates and everything else that went on. Yeah. Any other questions on stuff going on out there, or curious about stuff?
Yeah, other business, other
business, general updates, what's that?
Yeah.
That's all.
Went through it.
Yeah, that's a 2-in-1 right there.
Okay.
Old business and general updates.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Adam, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Adjourned.
Thanks, guys.